Hello and welcome to the Locked On Steelers podcast. I'm your host, Chris Carter. We today are breaking down the Steelers' biggest talking points going into the preseason finale against the Panthers tonight at 7 p.m. Get all those talking points here with Nick Farabaugh from PennLive.com. It's going to be a fun one. Let's get into it.
You are Locked On Steelers, your daily Pittsburgh Steelers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome to the Locked On Steelers podcast. I'm your host, Chris Carter, bringing you daily dose of all things on the Pittsburgh Steelers. As always, you can find the show on your favorite podcasting apps and on YouTube. Like this video if you enjoy it. Subscribe to this YouTube channel to get all of your daily Monday through Friday episodes as well as our bonus content. We thank you for making us your first listen every day because we're your team every day. And today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Football season is around the corner. Visit FanDuel app today and start planning your future bets now. More on them later. As I said, we're joined by the man himself, Nick Farabaugh. He's back in the house from PennLive.com. We always love having Nick on. And Nick, tonight is the preseason finale. Thank goodness. Only one more game that does not count. Good Lord in the heavens. I am so ready for regular season football to be here, for cut down day to be here. Not that I want to see guys get cut and lose their jobs, but I'm just ready for some real football, Nick. We've seen so much of the preseason stuff.
Training camp grind gets old after a while, man. It's time. Like, even seeing them in stadium, like there was the intrigue of the first game, and this game, we're going to see some of the stars we probably didn't see before. There's intrigue. I just want to watch real football. So September 7th in the Meadowlands, let's go. Like, I'm ready for it. I'm ready for it already.
I'm ready for it as well. I want to talk about the top things that we're looking at here in this game. And I know I'm going to sound like a broken record, the top positions to watch in the preseason finale, but I really want to see this run game just get a little bit more of a start. It doesn't have to do anything complex. I'm not looking for Broderick Jones and Troy Fautanu to dually pull and become lead blockers for an 80-yard touchdown. I'm not asking for nothing crazy, but I am saying, hey, and I asked Mike Tomlin this yesterday or 2 days ago after practice. I'm like, hey, you guys have only run the ball 5 times with your first team offense, and in those 5 times, I didn't bring up Isaac Seumalo wasn't involved. He looks like he's back and healthy. Jaylen Warren hasn't practiced or haven't been in the preseason games. He has been practicing. He's healthy. I think it could be a good priority for the Steelers, even without Aaron Rodgers and DK Metcalf playing, to say, hey, let's get some real live reps of the full run first team rushing unit out there at the same time, just to run some basics, the wide zone, get maybe a trap, something that says, hey, we can get these things going early in games. Nick, am I tripping, or should the Steelers should that not be a Steelers priority right now?
It should be, and I've wanted to see Isaac Seumalo play alongside Broderick Jones just for that chemistry there. We know wide zone schemes are so timing based that like you need to have that chemistry with your guard and your tight end. So I think that's important to just see that kind of work out on a field in live practice. And not only that, I also do just kind of want to see what it looks like. I think they're going to run different schemes this year that they maybe aren't going to show. But what does the wide zone stuff look like with Jaylen Warren? I'd like to see Kaleb Johnson get a carry or two behind the first team offensive line because we know he's going to. He took 5 snaps with the first team unit last week. He just didn't get any runs. I'd like to see that. And I also do think it just has trickle-down effects here. If you have Seumalo in there, Spencer Anderson now is with the second team. McCollum's going to be back. Like, the second team O-line is going to be more like the actual second team offensive line, so you can get more of a read on guys like Kaleb Johnson and all that. So all these timing-based things in this run game I think are super important. And I also just want to see how it looks in 12 personnel. I want to see Pat Freiermuth and Darnell Washington out there. I want to see how that looks. I'm not really expecting to see Jonnu Smith do much, if anything, on Thursday, but I want to see those two out there because it will be something that I think we'll see. And I want to see their 12 personnel package. Does Roman Wilson being the guy in 12 personnel work? Or does it have to be someone else? Gabe Davis obviously came on the visit, but do they need another big body guy, or can Roman do it himself? So there's a lot of things I have about the run game. I don't have that many questions about the pass game since we've just seen it so heavily over the last 2 weeks.
And Aaron's not playing. So
right. And Aaron's not playing. So I just want to see this run game and see what it can do together as a unit before the regular season, because I think that's going to be the part that's going to be the biggest thing for this offense to start, at least to have a high floor. I think you need to run the football.
I agree. And Mike Tomlin, when I asked him about, why only having 5 runs, he said, we're collecting a lot of different data. We've got different agendas during the preseason. I get that. But I just feel like with the priorities that this team has placed on drafting and developing the offensive line, on getting Kaleb Johnson, on making this team a physical team up front on both sides of the ball, but especially on offense, I feel like you'd want to see a little bit more from this group. Now, I talked to Alan about this a little bit on Tuesday, and Alan was like, maybe there's a confidence that this is just going to get figured out. And I hear that. I hear there could be a confidence, but this isn't like when Ben Roethlisberger, Antonio Brown, and Juju Smith-Schuster and Martavis Bryant and and Marquise Pouncey. This isn't a unit that's known each other for years. This is a unit that's going to need to figure things out throughout the season. And I'm not saying get all this work in right now, but I'm saying just a few more reps in this preseason game, I think could behoove them in their development, maybe get them a little bit more data points for their collection of things. Because I feel like if this O-line goes into the regular season raw without any reps in the run game, not that preseason determines everything or even anything at times, but I feel like that could be putting a few more things to chance when they go up against a team like the Jets.
Right, and I do think the guard-tackle duo chemistry, because McCormick and Fautanu are working together really for the first summer together. Obviously, Seumalo and Broderick are doing the same thing. I just want to see the chemistry, what it looks like, what needs to work on. Because, listen, I mean, Chris, Seumalo has not practiced that much this summer. Like, they've kept him on a pitch count for sure. And so we haven't really been able to see that a ton. And even when they have done it, I mean, it hasn't necessarily been super pretty, right? This run game in the run periods we've seen at training camp and the joint practice, it wasn't exactly like a great run game. It's not like we're watching the Detroit Lions out here and every run they have is breaking for a 40-yard rip. So I would just like to see that a little bit, that become an emphasis for them. Because I think their agenda in the first 2 games was, hey, let's figure out what we got in Roman Wilson.
Yes.
Let's see what we have, Scotty Miller, Brandon John. Like, let's see what these receivers got. Now I think it also needs to move and say, hey, I think we kind of know what we have in Roman Wilson. Scotty Miller's kind of ascended up the depth chart. So we feel like we know what we have at wide receiver. Now it needs to be, hey, how's this run game going to work? And how are we going to ingratiate it into this offense? Because it's going to be the big part of this offense. Nothing's going to change about the Arthur Smith offense. This is going to be a wide zone, downhill attack that they're going to have to look at. And so if they can't get some reps outside of like 5 to 6 runs with the first unit, I think that's a little bit of a disappointment. So I think that needs to be the agenda this week, even though they're probably going to be going against the Panthers too.
Right. And I think that's the thing here is they're not going to get starters. And Mike Tomlin even talked about the excitement of the chance of doing that. But David Canales, Panthers head coach, noted that the backups will be going in for the Panthers. So really not much of a chance to see Ted McMillan, Bryce Young, Xavier Legette on the defensive side of the ball, which was a bit of it. And it could have been exciting because Mike Tomlin looked like he was ready to throw out Jalen Ramsey, Darius Slay, and Joey Porter Jr. To go against those guys and get some more reps with them. But again, I think it's just going to be interesting to see who they do throw out there and for how long and if the run game becomes a factor. But let's talk about some other people who need to make the team or questionable about their chance to kind of cement their future with the team. And one person in particular that everyone was really excited about is Will Howard. He's been injured. And unfortunately, in his absence, there's been some decent quarterback play from the other backups. I want to talk about that situation specifically with Nick. We'll do that next here on the Locked On Steelers podcast. I'm your host, Chris Carter. Stick with us. Be right back. But first, we remind you the show is brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook, the #1 sportsbook in America. August 26th is officially FanDuel Futures Day, a brand new holiday for football fans who live for bold predictions and preseason hunches. For just 24 hours, FanDuel is giving you deals on NFL season predictions. So whether you're calling your MVP, eyeing a long shot division winner, or ready to crown your Super Bowl champ before week 1 even kicks off, this is your moment. One key future bet is always who's going to win MVP. Right now, Lamar Jackson is the favorite at plus 430, and that's a pretty good bet, but I'm really intrigued by the potential of Jaden Daniels being a plus 1,000 bet right now. That's the fifth best of odds of any player out there. Go place your MVP future odds. Visit the FanDuel app today and start playing your future bets now, because future day is one day and one day only. That's August 26th. Get in on FanDuel Futures Day today and go to the FanDuel app today. FanDuel, play your game. We're back here in the Locked On Steelers podcast. I'm your host, Chris Carter, here with Nick Farabaugh of PennLive.com, getting you ready for the Steelers preseason finale. Now, Nick, I haven't talked much about Will Howard because he hasn't played in a while. He had an injury in training camp to his thumb or to his hand, close to his thumb, whatever. But he had been sitting out. Now, it wasn't a devastating injury, but in the sense that it took out his season, but it was a devastating in the injury in that it threatened to take out his preseason. And that's when you were going to basically see Will Howard this year. I have not seen any notes that he's any closer to playing than he was before, which is unfortunate. But it leads me to the big question is, what do they do at the quarterback position, Nick? Because obviously Aaron Rodgers is this team starter. He hasn't even taken a snap in preseason. He won't take a snap in preseason. I think Mason Rudolph has shown that he is good for this team when he's the number 2 guy coming off the bench. Coming in a pinch, he can lead a solid offensive attack, be a good NFL journeyman backup quarterback who can play there. But the problem for Will Howard is Skyler Thompson also looks like a good journeyman NFL quarterback who can play some backup football. And I have to admit, I did not have Skyler Thompson making my final 53 when I started the preseason and training camp. I thought, okay, Will Howard will just win that job, but I didn't take into account the possibility of Will Howard being injured and Skyler Thompson impressing me as a backup quarterback. Nick, is there any concern that Will Howard might need to go on IR or something like that, or do you think Skyler Thompson's just, hey man, good job in preseason, but you got to hit the road?
I mean, I think if Will Howard's healthy, he's the QB3. I do.
He should be, right?
Right. And he had a good camp.
That's where I'm at.
Right. And he had a good camp. And here's the thing with Skyler Thompson. It's not like he's like a third-year reclamation project. He's been around for a little bit. You have tape on him. Like, you kind of know what Skyler Thompson is. He struggled a lot with the Dolphins. It's not like you're making a big scheme projection either. They're both Shanahan tree guys, similar offenses. Skyler's had a nice camp and a nice preseason and has probably played his way onto a 53-man somewhere. I don't think it's with Pittsburgh. Now, listen, if Will Howard's hand is like not healing and you think you can put him on the IR to return list, go for it. Then you keep Skyler Thompson for a little bit, and that's what it is. But I do think Will Howard, one, has upside that you don't necessarily know about. He's the kind of question, right? He's the treasure chest. Yes. What could he be? And he also had a good camp. Like, I think if he had struggled in camp, and we were talking about how Will Howard was struggling,
right?
But he didn't. He was pretty much getting better. Like, I think he would have had a nice preseason. So Skyler's done a really nice job. And Skyler kind of took the chance and said, hey, I'll audition for 31 other teams. And I think that's where this is going to go as long as Will Howard is healthy. So that's kind of where I think it goes. But good on Skyler Thompson. He has had a really good preseason.
I think that's the thing, is that Skyler Thompson might put himself in a position where he's able to say, like, hey, random team that does not feel good about their quarterback situation. Like, I look at the Saints and they're not sure about Tyler Shuck or Spencer Rattler or what's going on there. I'm not saying Skyler Thompson would go and start for the Saints, but if I'm thinking, hey, like, I need a veteran who can just get us out of a game, because I don't know if we even have that on the roster right now. That could be useful to someone. And I agree with you that Will Howard, the projection of the potential of a future of Will Howard is important to this. It's why they drafted him in the first place. It's why I thought they should draft him, because the Steelers had not had a young quarterback on this roster after the departure of Justin Fields, who you could say, hey, if we get this guy to buy in on the tenets of our offense, on what we're trying to do, and he really sinks his teeth in here, maybe there's a chance he can be a good quarterback that maybe isn't the best quarterback in the upper tiers of quarterbacks in the NFL, but can be a good NFL quarterback that is, part of an offense that has a really good O-line, has playmakers around him, kind of like how Will Howard was at Ohio State. Really good offensive line, really good receivers, really good run game, and he got to just be a good quarterback in the right moments and be a heady leader. And I can see why Will Howard fits that picture, and that's why I'm on board with keeping Will Howard. And the only thing is, like you were saying, if Will Howard is injured to the point that he can't be ready to go, even in like a practice setting for the first few weeks, put him on, keep him going into the 53-man roster cuts. The first day of the roster cuts, you probably cut Skyler Thompson, put Will Howard on injured reserve. If no one goes and scoops up Skyler Thompson right away, you bring Skyler Thompson back temporarily, and then Will Howard's on your injured reserve for 4 weeks. You see how that goes, and then you could potentially bring him back after that, or don't, because you could just shut him down for the year if you're thinking, hey, he's the third string quarterback. I just want him on the sidelines watching Aaron Rodgers and Mason Rudolph and kind of taking things in for a year. I think that is a very reasonable approach, so that the Steelers, and again, I'm not saying Will Howard, I know there's a lot of people that watch this channel that love Will Howard and think that he could be the next franchise quarterback. I'm not saying that he's going to be that, but you at least keep him in the fold so that, let's say the Steelers, Aaron Rodgers gets you to the playoffs, maybe wins you a playoff game, retires, Mason Rudolph comes back next year, you have Will Howard in the fold, and then you still draft your quarterback next year. Then you have a veteran in Mason Rudolph who can show you the ropes of how to run an NFL offense, Will Howard with a year of experience to come in and say, I'm the young guy, I've been here before, and then that rookie quarterback. I think that's a good allotment to want to have next year, projecting wise, for the Steelers quarterback room, so that they can build around that.
Right. I mean, if you did place Will Howard on IR, obviously you wouldn't get any live reps. But Chris, you and I have been doing enough regular season practices. How many reps does the QB3 actually get?
Not many.
None.
None. Yeah.
Right. The backup runs the scout team. So, so Will Howard, essentially, if he is placed on IR, will be doing the same thing he probably would be doing outside of Indy.
QB3.
Right. Indy drills would be the big thing there. So it's not like a drastic difference. Howard is kind of in a spot where I think he's not getting cut, right? Like, that's not an option. So he's either going to be IR'd or he'll be the QB3. So he's in a win-win position. I also think with Skyler Thompson, you talk about the Saints, the Colts could be a team he pops into with, Daniel Jones and Anthony Richardson right now.
That situation.
Right, in that situation. There's a lot of spots that I think Skyler Thompson could pluck into. And so I think he's done a nice job. And he's had flashes of like really good ball placement and accuracy where you've seen something where it's like, okay, this guy's a rosterable quarterback. And so I do think maybe the Steelers, could they maybe get like a conditional late round pick? Maybe. I think it's probably wishful thinking, but maybe they could if a team's desperate enough. Either way, I just don't see how this doesn't end with Will Howard, one, being in the org, and two, Skyler Thompson either on another 53 or on the Steelers 53 if Will Howard goes to IR. I think that's just how it works out.
Yeah, I think so. And again, like you said, Will Howard looked good before his injury. I think that was the really unfortunate part, was that I was even excited to see him play in some preseason games, which he would have taken a lot of those reps Skyler Thompson took in those games, and then you would have gotten to see, hey, let's see that athleticism, let's see that headiness, because a big part of, to me, why they went and got a Will Howard is because he looked like he was a guy that could manage the moment, had the size, the all the tools that you wanted for a basic quarterback player in your offense. And if he could show good steps forward this preseason, maybe you're like, okay, there could be something there. But unfortunately, that has not been the case. But just because that's not the case does not mean that they should throw the baby out with the bathwater. Keep Will Howard in the fold. Let's see what he brings to the table. And he's still a good young quarterback to bring back. I still think that guy could be your future Mason Rudolph, where he's at least a guy that you keep around, learns your system, and in a pinch, let's say you miss at the next quarterback pick next year. And let's face it, the majority of NFL teams, when they pick in the first round, miss with their first round quarterbacks. Even it's great when you hit, and you hope to hit if you're the Steelers, but you also have to have contingency plans. I feel like Will Howard's a good contingency plan to have.
Right. He is. And you always want to have the young contingency plan.
Yes.
I always try and say you always like to have a young quarterback on your roster just in case the worst case scenario hits, which is maybe the Steelers just get hit with injury after injury after injury after injury.
2019.
Right. And the season's just kind of lost, right? At least you had that year, you had Mason Rudolph and you had Duck Hodges. You had two young quarterbacks that you could be like, let's see what they are. This year, if Rodgers gets hurt and then, Watt, Hayward, Ramsey, they just all go down, right? And it's just a disaster. you'd want at least somebody to evaluate. And I do think Howard has that upside. So there's at least that. And so when you have a guy that is a 6th-round pick and performed like he did in training camp, which was certainly, I think, above the level of a 6th-round quarterback, you want to keep that guy around. He looked to me like a guy that projects as a future really good backup quarterback. And so, yeah, you keep him around. You got his rookie contract for 4 years. I mean, why would you move on from him, right? And so Skyler Thompson's done a great job. It's kind of like the same situation, with the punters right now. A little different because one of those punters is obviously not going to be on the roster, and that's a true battle. But one of those punters has probably played themselves onto another roster. I think Skyler Thompson's done the same thing, and good for Skyler Thompson. And maybe it nets the Steelers an extra pick, which would certainly be nice for them. But I don't think this affects Will Howard in a huge way, to be quite honest with you.
I agree. It shouldn't, and I hope it doesn't, because again, I like the young guy. I thought he would have been a worthy 4th-round pick for the team. Turned out he was a great 6th-round pick for value there. We'll see how that plays out tonight in the preseason game with how much they play Thompson. And then next week, Tuesday, is roster cutdown day. We'll be getting you ready for that here on the Locked On Steelers podcast. But speaking of cutdown day, there's a lot of other guys who do have things to prove, who don't have, I think, the benefit of being a young quarterback who this team might want to take into to the regular season. We'll talk about who has the biggest points to prove next on the Locked On Steelers podcast for the Steelers preseason finale tonight, 7 p.m. against the Panthers. We'll talk about that next here on the Locked On Steelers podcast. But first, I remind you that this show is brought to you by Monarch Money. Most people can't name all their financial accounts or even what they're worth, whether it's 401ks, properties, or investments. And when you don't have the full picture, you can end up leaving a lot of money on the table. That's where Monarch Money comes in, because it's an all-in-one personal finance tool that brings your entire financial life together in one clean, easy-to-use interface on your laptop or on your phone. Monarch Money isn't just a budgeting app. It's a complete financial command center. You can use Monarch to do the heavy lifting for you. You can link all your accounts in minutes, see clear data visuals, get smart categorization of spending, and finally feel in control of your money without ever touching a spreadsheet. I linked all my accounts to Monarch and immediately spotted a few subscriptions that I wasn't even using anymore. Canceled those, and that saves me money every month. Monarch makes it simple to review my finances with my partner. We can both see our budgets, goals, spending, activity all in one place. Don't let financial opportunity slip through the cracks. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONNFL at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONNFL for half off your first year only at Monarch Money. We're back here on the Locked On Steelers podcast. Chris Carter, I almost close you, Alan Saunders, Nick Farabaugh. Right? Oh, that's crazy. I'm just tired, man. It's been a long preseason. But Nick, let's get into guys who have something to prove in this final preseason game. I've gone over guys that I expect to be starters, and I think a lot of those guys are cemented in their roles. But who are some of those backups that you think have the biggest points to prove going into this game, that need to show something there, and maybe the last couple of days of practice too, to make sure that they are on this final 53?
Well, the biggest name that comes to mind to me is Beanie Bishop. I think
I agree.
He's the guy. Listen, I think Beanie should be on this roster. To be quite honest with you, he has a shortcomings. He's not great man-to-man. I understand that. But he's improved in zone. He's gotten smarter with his eyes. He's a very, very competitive player and is willing to stick his face in the fan there in the screen game. And he tackles decently well. And he also is a guy that, had 4 picks last year. It's like, he did make plays. He made splash plays. We haven't seen a ton of that this summer, but it's been shown in a game that he can do that. So let's see what he can do. If he can prove that he can stick in man-to-man a little better, I think that's a big part of it for him. And Terrell Austin's comments, I mean, listen, I don't read too much sometimes in the comments, but those were – TA is a straight shooter with us, and that told me Beanie's, kind of in contention to make me miss the roster. And just like him, James Pierre, I think, needs to continue to have a strong preseason as well on special teams. For him, the coverage part doesn't necessarily matter as much. If he makes his teams for special teams as a gunner, kick coverage guy, he needs to continue to do that. His coverage is always going to be a roller coaster, and you've seen that just play out throughout the preseason. So that corner room is going to be an interesting one to watch. Another guy, I think, two guys I think need to have really good games. Mark Robinson and Carson Bruner for that last inside linebacker spot. That one's going to be competitive. I think Mark Robb has the up right now on Carson Bruner. So we'll see who can get in there out of those two. Oh, another corner that I think might actually play this week that has missed the first 2 games, rookie Dante Kent. He needs to have a game.
He does.
He needs to play his way into the practice squad. You can put a ton of the defensive linemen in there. You can put Big O, Zazio Tomowo in there, Logan Lee, those guys on the roster fringe. And then the other guy that I think really needs to have a really big game is Dylan Cook, because I think he right now might be losing ground to Andres Pete. And
Andres Pete is catching up. I was going to say that, yeah.
Pete had a good game against the Bucs, and Cook has been up and down, hasn't been consistent. Pete, if I were making a 53-man roster projection right now, I'd probably have Pete on it. Honestly, I didn't.
I do.
Right.
He played. I forget which order it was, but he played one preseason game completely left guard. The other preseason game completely left tackle. Mike Tomlin loves versatile dudes. He's a former first-round pick who's been in the NFL since 2015, who can play multiple positions. That seems like a pick for Mike Tomlin. So if you're a backup offensive lineman, you got something to prove, and you got to prove it now.
Yup, and I think that's a big thing. If Cook can play well, he can maybe actually even, they might start Calvin Anderson on the IR list even, and if he can play his way onto the 53-man. Like, Dylan Cook needs to make himself non-expendable. That's going to be the big thing. So he needs to have a big game as well. And then the last 2 guys that I think obviously need to have big games because they are in the really only true active battle for a starting job right now. The punters.
Let's go, baby.
So Cam Johnston and Corliss Waitman continue to do it. They put on a show this summer. They're looking really good. I honestly do not know who's going to win that battle.
I thought this was Cameron Johnston's job to lose, but Corliss Waitman has not made that easy. And so I'm impressed by Corliss Waitman. Right now, I kind of give him a slight edge, and I didn't have that until the last preseason game when I was looking at their numbers, and I was just like, this dude's averages is like in the mid-50s. This dude's averages in the 40s, and some of that's circumstantial because shorter fields and let's do some coffin corners. But I feel like Corliss might have a better leg on him. I think I feel like the difference is Johnston might have a little bit more tact to his accuracy and putting it to the sideline and situationally like that. But give me the guy that can boom the football, because if you can flip the field, that to me is the weapon. That's what you were hoping to get with Presley Harvin, and just only got maybe like 2 or 3 games out of his career with you. But I want to revisit the player you brought up, Beanie Bishop, because that was the top guy that I was looking at here. Beanie Bishop, I was really impressed by him last year as an undrafted rookie to get 4 interceptions, 2 of which came on Aaron Rodgers. He was a guy that locked in and helped out. And I wanted to pull up Terrell Austin's exact quote so people could know what you're talking about. When did you ask the question to him about Beanie, or was that someone else?
I believe I did, yeah.
You did. So, okay. When he said, when you asked, where does Beanie Bishop fit in with the deep secondary? Is this Carolina game big for him? Terrell Austin said, quote, well, where Beanie fits in is he's really going against some pretty good competition now at the nickel. When you throw 5, of course, Jalen Ramsey in there. Then you throw BE, Brandon Eccles in there. He says he's really got to fight and work to make some splash to put himself in the picture. He's been working his tail off. And like everybody, when you're not a starter, the biggest thing that's got to happen for you is all these preseason games are big because you have an opportunity to distance yourself from some other people in gameplay. We see you in practice every day. We know what you do in practice, but how you distance yourself in the game situation, that's what matters. Do you really show up on game day? So these preseason games are going to be big for a guy like Beanie Bishop in a sense that he's got one left to show us some good stuff, and I'm sure he will. He'll give it his all. You're right. That sounds to me like they are tested. Beanie, you better show up, man. And Beanie's in a tough spot because, like he said, this team added Jalen Ramsey and is playing him a lot in the slot, which is Beanie's primary role. Brandon Eccles has been a guy that's lived in the slot, and I think that's another thing you have to consider. As those are 2 guys that you can say, hey, we already have 2 guys that could move into the slot right now, and. Beanie Bishop, you're undersized. You're not as flexible, to move outside. And James Pierre can be that guy. And granted, James Pierre, I think, has had a rougher preseason than Beanie, but James Pierre can also play outside on the left or the right side. And to me, that is the thing that Beanie Bishop really runs up against, is his role is just limited.
The issue with Beanie compared to both James Pierre and Eccles is they both also bring teams. value. I think that's the other thing. Eccles is a gunner. Pierre's a gunner. They both work on kick teams. Beanie doesn't. Beanie doesn't do a ton of special teams stuff. And that's a big issue if you're trying to make the team as the 5th or 6th corner. So what Beanie has to do is, one, either have a really good day on teams. I think that could be a big one. They say, okay, Beanie, you got teams value now. This is good. Or he's going to have to be so good at slot corner that he's going to beat out Brandon Eccles for the backup slot job. And that's going to be what happens, because Eccles is a lock. He's going to be the main backup on both sides outside, and he's going to be a big-time contributor on the punt and kick coverage. So he's got this roster spot on lock. JP, James Pierre, I think he can become expendable if Beanie shows that he can do stuff on special teams. I think that's his path, is kicking Pierre off, and then the Steelers will just plug in Corey Trice and say, okay, Corey's going to be the backup guy, the second backup anyways. And Trice's hamstring kind of the kind of big thing here, right?
Yeah.
If Trice's hammy isn't healed, they could throw Trice on IR and keep Beanie on the roster anyways. So Beanie's going to have to prove that he cannot be exposed to waivers, that they need to keep him. And I think actually just as important as what he does in the slot is going to be just as important as what he does on special teams. If he makes 1 or 2 special teams tackles, I think that will go so far in getting Beanie a roster spot, because it'll showcase he can do multiple things. He can be a slot, but hey, we can also put you on as a gunner. We can also put you on kick coverage. That's a big thing for guys when they're making the bottom of the roster. So Beanie has to do a good bit here, because they're not keeping 3 slot corners. It's just not going to happen. If Eccles beats him out for the slot job and Beanie doesn't have any value as a outside of slot corner, it's going to be hard to roster him. And there is a realistic scenario where, Trice told Alan Saunders yesterday he's starting to work off to the side on the field, so he's not that far away, it feels like. There is a scenario, Chris, where the backup 3 are Eccles, Pierre, and Trice, and Beanie's off the roster. So let's see what happens.
It's one of those let's see what happened moments where I think the Steelers are hoping to see more guys. And look, Beanie Bishop, I think there's been an appreciation for a guy who comes in and works his butt off. I've thought that he had a chance to be the next sort of Mike Hilton as far as presence wise for the Steelers, not necessarily exactly how he played, but being the undrafted small guy at slot cornerback who just worked his butt off and everyone appreciated. But again, it's tough to be a Mike Hilton. Those don't just grow on trees, the way that he contributed to the Steelers. So I think that there's going to be interesting potential for him. But hey, this is the NFL. This is the tough part of the business. It's why Hard Knocks every year is such a big show, because this is drama. As much as this won't determine who wins the Super Bowl or anything like that, or who wins the division. These are real people's lives and careers on the line. And when you get cut and you don't make it to a training, that can sometimes be the end of your career or the start of your end of your career. And so lots to prove for these guys. It's one of those things that I think that people could appreciate more about how hard it is to make it to the NFL and then in the NFL. But that's another reason why you want to watch some of these preseason games to get some of those battles. We'll get to all those battles tonight when we get to see them here, and then we'll have some post-game coverage, here on the Locked On Steelers podcast. I'm Chris Carter. He's Nick Farabaugh. Thanks again for tuning into our show here. Nick, let people know you can find you, follow you, and get more of your work.
Yeah, you can follow me on Twitter at Farabaugh FB, Blue Sky Nick Farabaugh. Make sure to read the stuff at PennLive.com/Steelers and check out the YouTube channel, the Steelers Blitz on Penn Live.
Absolutely. He's Nick Farabaugh from PennLive.com. I'm Chris Carter here from the Locked On Steelers podcast. You can read my work at the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette by going to post-gazette.com. You can find me on social media at Carter Critiques on Twitter, TikTok, Blue Sky, Instagram, wherever you get social media. I'm usually there at Carter Critiques. You can read my work again at the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette, and you can find me here every day, Monday through Friday, on your favorite podcasting apps and on YouTube on the Locked On Steelers podcast. Like this video if you enjoyed. Subscribe to this channel to get all of our Monday through Friday episodes, as well as our bonus content during the weekends. We'll have more coverage later tonight going into the morning of our post-game coverage here from the Locked On Steelers podcast. Keep it here for all your Steelers coverage.